Magnus Carlsen is the highest rated online blitz player of all time, but in 2020, Brazilian grandmaster Luis Supi stunned Magnus in only 18 moves, with a combination that left Magnus in awe, and he does not like to lose. Let's see what happens here. In the game, Supi has the white pieces and Magnus plays pawn to a6, trying to chase this very active knight away. But Supi plays a gangster move. He doesn't move the knight and instead plays pawn to c4, reinforcing it, saying, "Hey Magnus, take my knight, because if you ever take it, I take back with the a pawn, opening up the a file for my rook, and I'm going to have an attack for the rest of the game." Pawn to c4 is actually a mistake, not because it gives up the knight, but it gives Magnus the one opportunity to stop the attack by playing queen to d3, offering a queen trade. Magnus does not play that and instead plays the principled move pawn to e5, controlling the center and trying to get his pieces out. Unfortunately, pawn to e5 doesn't work because of one move. Supi plays pawn to d4 and sacrifices his pawn in the center. And this is a problem for Magnus, because if you ignore it, Supi is simply going to win a pawn, have the open d file, and continue with the attack. So Magnus is basically forced to take it, but now Supi sacrificed that pawn to accelerate his development. He can immediately play bishop to f4 now and attack this c7 pawn, and that is very difficult to defend. The only real way to defend is to play a passive move like rook to c8. So instead, Magnus decides to just take the knight and hope for the best. But now we take back with the a pawn and have this open a file. And with this pawn on b5, Supi is now threatening pawn to b6 to exploit this pin. So Magnus plays bishop to d6, blocking and trying to offer some piece trades. But now Supi's plan is very simple. He just plays rook to a2. He wants to double up rooks on the a file and checkmate Magnus on a8. So Magnus plays seemingly the most logical move, queen to f5. Now attacking this bishop on f4 and preparing an evacuation route for the king to run to d7 out from its castle. But Supi just plays rook to a1, threatening checkmate, and Magnus continues with his plan and plays king to c8. And after this move, it seems like Magnus has stopped its problems. Now he can just run his king out from its castle, he's up a piece, and he stopped the attack. But after king to c8, this move doesn't work because of one move. It doesn't get more romantic than this. Supi stuns Magnus with queen c6, sacrificing the queen on an empty square, simply not letting the king escape from its castle. And now we're reintroducing the threat of rook to a8 checkmate. This is where Magnus resigned the game, because if you take the queen, we simply take back with the pawn, and the pawn is creating the same function as the queen. There is absolutely no defense against rook to a8 checkmate.